Let's give Dr. Batiste another minute or so, and then we can get going. Let's give Dr. Batiste another minute or so, and then we'll get going.
Did she say she was coming?
She's here. She can't get in the building.
Oh, gosh.
So I texted her that the front doors are open.
Very tight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tier 1.
I'm so thrilled we can walk across the parking lot, though.
That's
Mhm.
good, but you can't park in the parking.
Finding parking.
And we all parked in the garage, and then they came back and told us, oh, none of your passes work. We're like,
Oh, no.
well, we're in there already.
So close.
And then we're like,
There you go.
I'm just trying to roll.
All right. Let's get underway. Good morning and welcome to Kedrick Redding's defense on his dissertation entitled Code Switching Through Music and Performance, an exploration of how Black high school band directors navigate dual explanations. The format for today will be Kedrick will share his research with us. We'll have some time for the committee and any audience to ask questions, and then we will proceed. So without further ado, Mr. Redding.
Thank you. Good morning. Today I will present to you the findings of my research, code switching for music and for performance, an exploration of how Black band directors navigate dual expectations. But first, I would like to thank my dissertation committee for their guidance and support. It has truly been an honor to learn from each of you. To my loving wife, Misha, thank you, and I love you for your patience, your understanding, your continued support. You have been an anchor for me throughout this entire process. To my children, I hope that through my efforts and accomplishments that you will come to understand the values of hard work and believing in oneself. And I love you all too. I would like to thank my mother, Eula Redding, for her strength, determination, and support. The values that you instilled in me throughout my childhood has played a major role in who I am today. To my brothers, sisters, family, friends, and mentors, thank you all for your love, your continued support, and your encouragements. Lastly, this dissertation would not have been possible without all of the directors who participated in this study. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your insights. I'm truly grateful for your openness and your perspectives that brought this study to life. Growing up, I experienced two different school environments. A well-funded, predominantly white middle school, and an under-resourced, predominantly Black high school. The gap in resources and support was visible, exposing the systemic issues that we face in education today. As a member of my high school marching band, the inequities became even more visible. At marching MPA, we were routinely stripped away of the very element that defined our culture and our musical identity, such as eliminating dance routines, lowering our knee heights, toning down our sound, keeping our instruments facing the home side even if we're moving side to side, keeping our instruments tilted towards the press box at all times, or even not remaining stationary during our concert selections and our auxiliary features, all to meet the court style standards that ignored and excluded our traditions. Despite complying, superior ratings were always out of reach for us. One judge even openly admitted that he did not understand our style and proceeded to give us a very low rating. Such moments reveal a design around one singular culture standard, one that does not include HBCU styles. What should have been a space for artistic and cultural representation became one where we learned how to code switch just to exist, a reality that most Black band programs still face today. For many Black band directors, leading an HBCU-inspired band is not just about the music, it's about preserving the Black cultural identity. Still, HBCU-influenced bands often face criticism from the broader music education community, where their styles are misunderstood or even seen less than musical. Studies such as McNair 2024 and Singleton 2020 provide supportive research that these directives and traditions, the traditions outside of court-style norms, are marginalized at adjudicated events, which reinforce the divides between accepted and excluded practices. Using code switching framework, the study explores how band directors navigate these tensions. Although others may experience cultural conflicts, HBCU band directors provide a clear view of how such bias manifests in adjudication. These realities reveal a major gap in music education, exposing the need for inclusive strategies, culturally culturally responsive adjudication practices, and the need to examine how Black band directors navigate and manage these cultural biases, which is rarely explored through empirical research. The purpose of this study is to examine the experience and perceptions of HBCU-influenced Black band directors and how they navigate cultural, professional expectations of Eurocentric education settings. Throughout this research, 3 questions served as the central focus. Question 1 investigates if band directors engage in code switching and how frequently they do so. Question 2 explores how Black band directors balance the HBCU traditions and court-style expectations through code switching. Question 3 examines how systemic barriers impact the experience of Black band directors using code switching as a strategy. Here I will briefly mention the theoretical frameworks and methods that support this research. First, critical race theory, supported by studies such as Bell, 1992, and Ladson, Billings, and Tate, 1995, helps us look at how power and race shape music education. CRT pushes back on the idea that curricular teaching and assessments are neutral. It shows how Eurocentric norms are often treated as a standard, creating cultural hierarchies that sound like any other cultural performance styles, making it harder for those cultures to be fully accepted in our schools today. Morton's taxonomy of code switching uses 4 dimensions that categorize how individuals navigate personal, professional, cultural, and stylistic changes. For the first dimension is pretense, which involves outwardly conforming to a different cultural identity while internally maintaining your original identity as a response to systemic pressures. Compartmentalization describes those who separate cultural identities based on situations, switching back and forth as needed. Subsumption refers to replacing your old identity with a new identity, but risking the loss of authenticity and facing cultural alienation. Integration blends elements of different cultural contexts into one unified identity. Schools such as North Carolina A&T, Florida A&M University, Norfolk State University, Compton University, Virginia State University, and more. What they do is combine the core style elements within the HBCU culture, which we call today a hybrid style. For the musical code switching framework, Dillon's 2018 study illustrates through 5 themes how music educators use code switching as a tool for cultural integration, professional navigation, performance styles, and teaching identity. Black music aesthetics embodies the cultural and artistic values rooted in African American traditions, emphasizing expression, improvisation, and community engagement. Batiste contends that while Western aesthetics are often dominate the music education, they coincide with BMA, challenging educators to rethink how music value is defined and assessed to fairly represent diverse traditions. The research design was a cross-sectional survey using 25 Likert scale questions to assess if and how Black band directors use code switching. The target sample was 150 participants. Eligibility required at least 1 year of experience as a head or assistant band director. add a program that incorporates HBCU style. This includes current, former, or retired directors. I used a modified snowballing sampling to reach certain populations, beginning with the support of HBCU collegiate band directors who served as the key recruiters. The data was collected through an online survey shared through email. I also used social media as an outreach tool targeting communities of Black band directors and using platforms relevant to music education. This allowed me to extend the study's reach and invite participants of individuals who might not even have a connection to HBCU directors. A second and third recruitment wave relied on participants referring other qualified colleagues. This process increased the likelihood of recruiting more experienced directors. The survey was originally separated into 4 categories. Category 1 included race, age, gender, level of education, years of experience, and cultural identification. Category 2 examined the modifications directors make in their communication, pedagogy, and programming to align with a professional expectation. Category 3 assessed directors' attitudes towards integrating culturally diverse music. Category 4 investigated the relational dynamics of code switching, exploring how directors shift their communication depending on who they are speaking to, colleagues, administrators, students, or adjudicators. At the end of the survey, I incorporated a qualitative component with an open response question that allowed directors to contribute any thoughts to the subject. Using descriptive statistics, frequency distributions, means, and percentages were used to summarize responses across survey items. These descriptive analyses provided an overview of trends related to participants' code switching behaviors, their perceptions of HBCU styles, and their experiences with cultural bias in professional settings. Inferential statistics examined the relationship between independent and dependent variables. The 3 different analyses that I used was an exploratory and confirmatory factor analysis, a one-way analysis of a variance, and a regression analysis. Excuse me. Now we will discuss the key findings of the research. While the goal was to recruit 150 participants, 131 participants completed the survey, but out of that, 109 met all of the qualifications. 92% of the participants were Black, and 89% of them attended a HBCU, and lastly, 86 of those were primarily male. Nearly half of the directors holds a music master's degree, at 48%. And 1 of 5 directors hold a doctoral degree at 21%. Approximately 2/3, 64%, reported that their ensembles participated in marching MPA within the past 5 years. Participants' teaching experiences span a wide range of states and included diverse school settings. The largest concentration of participants were found in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Texas, and Louisiana. These states align closely with the locations of many of the HBCUs, as noted by Milburn in a 2022 study. This trend also supports prior findings by Craig Theobald and Goldhaber's 2016 study, which suggests that teacher employment is often occurs near where they receive their bachelor degree. EFA was used to uncover patterns in data, grouping specific questions together to form a trend, while the CFA tested those patterns to see if they held up against the theoretical frameworks. Although the sample size was relatively small for the EFA analysis, the depth of the responses and the strong theoretical foundation supported moving forward with these analyses. For the EFA analysis, the original 4 categories that I mentioned before were consolidated into 3 broader categories to better represent the participants' responses. At first, the EFA suggested a two-factor model. However, theoretical considerations supported a three-factor model, as you see on the screen. Factor one captured the extent to which directors actively blend HBCU and core style band practices and whether they felt accepted doing so. Factor two focused on how directors navigate predominantly white band spaces, requiring code switching or accommodation through dominant norms. Factor three measures the degree directors resist the pressures to conform to mainstream norms, preserving Black cultural practices. For the CFA analysis, the three-factor model remains the best representation for the data. Factor one and two had strong internal consistency, meaning the items in each factor were closely related and measured the same concept. Factor three still offered valuable information, but was not statistically strong and well-defined as the first two. So it might need a little bit more study to confirm its reliability. Through the ANOVA analysis, I examined differences in mean factor scores across the age, gender, and ethnicity groupings. Factor one revealed there was no significant difference of any of the groupings. This suggests that participants' experience in engaging in multiple musical cultures and broadly similar and consistently high. Factor two revealed one significant group by gender. I found that women were scored significantly higher than men on average, suggesting that women engage in code switching practices more frequently than men. I did not know this, and this opens the idea of future exploratory research in that aspect. Factor three scores focused on participants' assertion of their cultural identity and did not show significant differences across any groups. However, while differences by age were not significant, it approached the 0.05 threshold, suggesting that a potential trend which experienced director reported a higher commitment to cultural authenticity than the younger directors. To further investigate the three factors, I used multiple linear regression analysis to explore the predictive powers of independent variables on the dependent variable scores. In each regression model, the dependent variable score were the factors. And the predictors were years of experience, as you see in this example, gender, age brackets, and ethnicity. However, none of them were statistically significant predictors. That means, for example, male and female directors, younger and older, directors from different ethnic backgrounds, and those with different assessment participation history all reported similar levels of code switching. In other words, code switching seemed to be a common theme across all dimensions. Survey responses provided a clear descriptive evidence that Black band directors frequently engaged in code switching to achieve musical and professional validation and acceptance. I will point out a few of them here. Item one, I engaged with both HBCU-centered and Westernized-centered cultural music practices in daily professional life. This received a high mean of 4.16, suggesting that nearly 85 to 90% of participants agreed or strongly agreed. Item two, I felt validated when my cultural practices are recognized within the professional setting, which also suggested a strong response of 70% of directors responding most of the time or always, indicating that recognition of their cultural identity and practices enhance their sense of professional validation. Item number three, I adjust my communication style based on the racial, cultural makeup of my professional environment. This revealed a frequent use of code switching with 56% participants indicating they do so most of the time or all the time, and another 23% responding sometimes. This highlights a widespread deliberate adoption of language as a professional strategy. Number 5. I'm sorry, I skipped number 4. I adjusted my repertoire or musical presentation based on audience adjudication and district expectation. I believe these choices influence assessment outcomes. 61% say they adjusted most of the time or always to align with adjudication or district expectations. This confirms that musical code switch is not just an artistic one, but a strategic one, reflecting a trend in pursuit of favorable assessment outcomes. Number 5, I felt that my cultural background influences how my professional performance is evaluated. This reinforces the attention, with 58% responding most of the time or always, and another 35% responding sometimes. This strongly suggests that directors believe cultural identity plays a significant role in professional judgments, reinforcing the need for strategic navigation in a system not always structured to value cultural diversity. Item number 6, one of the lowest scoring items, adjudicators evaluate HBCU influence performances with the same criteria as culturally white, corp style band performances, with only a mean of 2.64. This suggests that many directors do not feel culturally or professionally accepted in the mainstream music education spaces. And another 52% believe that HBC influence performances never or rarely are evaluated by culturally appropriate standards. Here I've chosen a few responses that serve, qualitative responses that serve as a representation of how Black band directors feel about code switching and cultural bias. Participant 1, there have been years where I have edited my marching show in the hopes of pleasing adjudicators, but for the past 3 years, we have not. Participant 2, for as so long, traditional and HBC cultural style bands have been fighting to be accepted and adjudicated fairly amongst predominantly white programs. Participant 3, UIL rarely has any adjudicators that can effectively score any HBCU traditional style band programs. Number 4, I've learned to present myself as myself. I am very comfortable with that notion now, but it was challenging to be perfect in my younger years. That last quote basically lines up with the ANOVA analysis, where I said it points out suggesting that there's a potential trend with older directors being more committed to the cultural authenticity and over the younger directors. Excuse me. Participant 5, coming from an HBCU-oriented music program as well as a PWI School of Music, it was seen that although the energy and gravitas of the bands from HBCU is widely accepted, students who come out of PWI programs were indoctrinated to assume that people from HBCU music programs lack the musical intelligence and performance skills to be on that level. I have found that every time this situation happens, the PWI students are typically projecting their inferiority in their environments towards people whom they think they are above. It usually ends with a satisfying crash out or a mental breakdown. The moral of the story, stop judging based on what you do not understand. It will work the same as directors from PWIs who interact with colleges, directors from HBCUs. It's all jokes and digs until we send our hood kids to region or state over theirs. Now we'll discuss the 5 implications of this study. Theoretical implications. The study challenges the Eurocentric norms by revealing how systemic racism and cultural identity shape the the experience of Black band directors. Practical implications offer actionable strategies for educators and adjudicators to foster cultural differences. Policy and institutional implications. The findings urge policy and institutional reform to support diverse musical traditions through fair funding and assessment systems. Cultural bias in music education and assessment. The study exposes how current assessment practices devalue non-Eurocentric styles, calling for inclusive rubrics and adjudication trainings. The need for systemic change. The study emphasizes the need for true equity through culturally responsive practices and fair resource distributions. Here are several limitations must be acknowledged. Methodologically, the study relies on quantitative data that is drawn from middle-sized sample participant, which may limit how the results apply to every situation. Scope-related limitations primarily focuses on directors that are affiliated with the HBCU traditions. The study may not fully account for the experience of Black band directors who do not align themselves with that particular style. Situational limitations, because the study deals with sensitive topics like race, cultural identity, and professional challenges, some participants may have felt pressured to present themselves in a certain way to avoid career blackballing. Social political context, which include ongoing debates around race, education, and representation, might have influenced both the framing of the questions and the ways participants respond. The findings make it clear that music education must embrace various cultural practices. However, achieving this will take structural changes within professional organizations and genuine commitment from educators to honor all cultural traditions. I suggest the following recommendations. Promoting cultural competence. Revise and diversify assessment rubrics. Create separate or parallel evaluation categories. Implement culturally responsive adjudicator training. Promote representation and adjudication on adjudication panels. In closing, this study affirms that code switching is not just a linguistic strategy. It is a professional reality for Black band directors as a way to survive in a system that still doesn't fully accept them. But these directors also resist, reclaim, and redefine legitimacy. The study helps us understand our experiences so we can use it to build better systems. I chose to conduct this study to shed light on how Black band directors, especially those leading HBCU style programs, navigate cultural bias in music education and adjudication, to open the conversation of strategic music realignment. It is clear that music education and adjudication practice for marching band needs real change, one that values every tradition for its own artistic and cultural work. Thank you. I will now open the floor for questions.
Excellent, Kedrick. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions?
Let me start.
Sure.
All right. Congratulations on completing such an important document, an important study that gives voice to a group of individuals who have been neglected in the literature. I also really appreciate how your study builds on the scholarship of people like Singleton, is that right? Singleton, and Dylan, is it Dylan or Dillard? Dylan, thank you. Regarding code switching. And in particular with Dylan's being an exploratory case study, And then you took that idea of code switching and expanded it to show how this seems to be a widespread practice among Black band directors. I think is a really important contribution and one that other people can continue to build on. But having that documented now, that this is a fairly common experience among many people, is really important. And I wanna reiterate that. I do have 4 questions for you.
Jesus. Okay.
That's right. You knew I was gonna go there. All right, first number 1. How do you define westernized?
So, this is a conversation we had before. So, in the HBCU world, we define westernized as anything Eurocentric that's not of the Black culture.
Okay.
So that includes classical music.
Okay.
Okay.
So, if there is scholarship that more clearly defines that, I think it would help ground your paper in that use of that term.
Mhm.
There are times, it gets a little gray for me in this one way. And most of my comments are about being more nuanced with some language.
Mhm.
So, sometimes you equate core style with westernized
Mhm.
and HBCU style as non-westernized.
Right.
But then you also say that the HBCU style is a hybrid between traditional marching and Black and African traditions. So then it would draw some from those westernized.
Right. So to clear that up, so basically you do have some HBCU bands who incorporate both.
Yes.
But overall, the HBCU style in our terms is not westernized. But you still have band directors who want to incorporate, like myself, I like core style, like DC, I like all of it. But they want to incorporate core style traditions, which we see as westernized,
Mhm.
into the HBCU culture. So when you look at a halftime show from, for example, North Carolina A&T, you will see elements of core style in it, but you will see them doing it in a HBCU format.
Okay, I guess a broader question I would have would be, can a marching band be considered non-westernized? Can the paradigm, wouldn't the paradigm of marching band be westernized?
I get what you're trying to say, marching, where the term marching band comes from.
Yes.
In that aspect, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I guess over time, what westernized, just like, code switching has evolved from linguistic to social, the westernized term has evolved from just marching band from over there to what we consider is westernized and non-westernized for us.
So is westernized a term that's used vernacularly among band directors?
Yes,
Ah, okay.
yeah,
That was not very clear.
okay,
So I think if you set it up that this is a term that is used among the population,
yeah,
and define it more clearly, then it would help outsiders like us
gotcha,
understand what that term means
Okay.
more. Okay.
gotcha.
So if you could add that to chapter 1, I think that would be good. Question number 2, please describe your qualitative analysis,
My qualitative,
like the process.
the process, it was very simple. I just added, a question at the end of the survey.
Mm-hmm.
And it just allowed, directors to provide whatever they wanted to, any thoughts. Some I could not use, I wouldn't use.
Why is that?
It could get a little touchy.
Okay.
So, it's one thing that I've learned through this study, there are some strong feelings about this that we do not really talk about, and that's what I'm hoping this study, begins that conversation. So expanding on this study, I'm hoping to go into a qualitative study side of this study. but I wanted to use some of those responses that represent the literature or even the information that I had in this slide. Just as, you know, participant number 4, we can tell that was an older person by their response. And it correlates with the findings that I found in the ANOVA analysis when it comes to, even though it showed no significant differences, it was close enough to that threshold to say, hey, this is a potential trend you might want to explore.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's interesting about the problematic points that you didn't necessarily want to quote directly in the study. It's insightful to me because some of the claims I thought, some of the things you were saying about your findings and the conclusions, I perceived as a little bit overstated. That you were making broader generalizations about things like cultural bias. And because we didn't get to see that evidence that you said was really strongly worded. So I would encourage you to maybe reconsider whether those findings could be, some of those quotes could be included.
okay.
Additionally, what do I want to say related to that? This kind of relates to my third question. What can a survey show? Or in other words, can a survey of one population prove something like cultural bias exists? Now, I do believe cultural bias exists, but can you definitively say that as a result of this one survey?
Yes.
Okay, why?
I believe that because what I did was give a voice to a lot of band directors to speak their minds through quantitative research. And based off the questions that I was asking, yes, those questions were designed to basically prove that this is happening. The thing that I take from it is I didn't really think that it was happening so broad across, you know, a whole lot of the states. So it's not an isolated event. This is an issue that we have in music education across the board in the United States. So yes, I do think, you know, listening to this one population and looking at their responses, it says, hey, there's something going on over here. Why do they feel like this?
Yes. So what you just said, I completely agree with and understand. Sometimes in how you were interpreting the results, I felt as though you were overstating what the results actually meant. That you were going a little too far in your interpretation.
Within the context of what he found.
In the context of what this study is, not in the context of does this actually exist. It absolutely exists, and these directors' voices speak to that. But your study, I think all of my colleagues would agree, any one study cannot prove anything. It sort of speaks to that, and then you have to look at the whole body of literature as a whole. So when you take your study in connection with so many others, that points to something like bias in adjudication. But to say that your study proved that there is adjudication bias when only speaking with this one population, I think you just need to be a little more nuanced in how you talk about it. So saying things like this is their perception of what they've experienced.
Okay.
Just to be a little more reflective of what a survey can actually show, one study can actually show. And if anybody has another way of saying that.
Well, I think it gets to, it's a perception thing. It's their perception of what they experienced. And while perception is reality to us as lived experience, we can't say that perception exists. Like you said, in the sample size, we don't know how it's going to generalize. So I think maybe looking at it as this is people's perceptions of this thing, where there's smoke, there's fire, we need to do more research, is what you're saying, but that doesn't always come across in the writing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There are a few terms you're saying points to, or I wrote the word suggest this, whereas
Yes.
you use the word confirm a lot.
Yes.
And I went back and I was like, are we proving a hypothesis? It was a null hypothesis, right?
Right.
So we're not confirming something that, even though can get to my question in a minute, but I know this is very personal for you, so I think that is where sometimes we get in a little bit of a gray area. Is this Kedrick speaking, or is this what the
Yes.
study has shown?
Yes.
I think one of the hardest things to do while I was writing this paper, doing this research, is because there is no research out there that's talking about this one thing. It was hard for me to remove my feelings out of it. So there were a lot of editing to basically just stick to the facts, stick to the findings. By no means am I gonna say just this one research or this one study is to prove it. Boom, here it is, there's your evidence, that's all you need. No, I want this research to start the conversation. And hopefully for those who are coming behind me or, or before me that wants to discuss this, they have this research here to build on. Just like, I want to expand from this research to now starting to research why women scored higher on
Right.
code switching than men. So it's to start the conversation, not just to prove, okay, yes, it's happening, we're off of it.
Right.
No, so by all means, no, that's not the voice that I was trying to portray. So I understood there were a lot of things in the paper that I had to change because it did sound like it was coming from me rather than
Yeah.
what we found.
Yeah, and it ultimately, my goal in saying that for you is so that people will take your research take it seriously. That you're fitting into this paradigm of like, this is how we present research, and that your findings are trustworthy.
Code switching.
So that's
We're asking her to
ultimately.
do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I said,
Wait.
I just said like, in a way, it's code switching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Well, there's the
Which-
meta moment for the day.
That's right, exactly. So
I didn't mean
that,
it that way.
I think I'll pause my questions for now and pass to somebody else.
Sure. I have three. I may not ask you all of them, but first of all, you're doing a great job up there, and enjoyed your presentation, and you clearly know what you're talking about, and you've worked really hard on this. So congratulations on getting to this point. I think I'll ask my first one. I'm interested in how you developed the survey and kind of what you've learned from that process. If you're going to do a survey in the future, if you could go back and do this one again, what have you learned from that? What would you change, or what went the way you wanted it to?
I like the Likert scale format. I do feel the theoretical framework was strong. However, I would change some of the Likert scale answers from always, most of the time, sometimes, to I strongly disagree to I strongly agree. I feel some of those will probably clear up the understanding of the question or the answers that's coming from those questions. I think that would be the only thing that I would change. And with the survey, I would also try to reach a stronger channel of recruitment, going to the professional networks, FMEA, GMBA, TMBA, and asking them to send out the survey to the masses. And I probably would not, now that I did the survey for Black band directors, I want to get the perceptions of the same study from everyone to see how Black band directors feel about this survey, how Hispanic directors feel about this survey.
And to expand on your question about the source and kind of the provenance of the survey, I think the original one was from, we found it in, it was not music.
Right.
It was like in nursing or something like that.
It was.
From Hong Kong. It was like
Yeah.
Cantonese versus Chinese, like Cantonese versus Mandarin or something. It was a code switching thing from a different culture, and the sometimes always never aspect of it was an artifact from that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we basically adapted that to like, okay, they're talking about these things in this survey. How do we port those over to musical ideas using the same sort of scope?
Yeah, and I think that's insightful about how you ask the question, I feel, I believe versus I do. I think the feel, believe questions are going to answer more of your research question of perceptions.
Yes.
Right,
Versus I did this, but what does that mean?
right.
So you'll see in the feedback I gave you, I highlight some of the questions. I didn't really write comments, but like,
Right.
think about this one again. What is this one actually telling you?
Yes.
And as you go into creating that survey, thinking 3 steps ahead of what results am I going to get from this? Which
Mhm.
analysis do I need? Am I asking the question in a way that gets me the analysis I want from it, or do I need to kind of restructure that? And then just as far as efficiency with your survey, because I took your survey and hopefully you threw away my response. As I don't remember if I put my name on it. But some things you could do,
I
like
believe that was the one I asked you about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
things you can think about for efficiency is, if you only want black band directors, then and you have someone who doesn't fit, then don't have them take the whole survey, right? So I think kind of the way that you structure the survey, there are some really good tools out there that you might want to explore.
well, at first, when it came to the race, I only put African American, black.
Okay.
But then I put the other races, I included other races because you do have some white band directors that are at HBCU influenced schools. And just to see, what their comments were, but not necessarily use them, I think that was more fair to open that up for, other races to be able to do that survey at the time.
So did you use that in your analysis or no?
No.
Well, in the analysis,
In
you
the
did
analysis, yeah, but not
the qualitative.
the qualitative.
Okay, because you were looking at, I
Black.
think your purpose statement was black
Right.
band directors.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. And then, can you tell us more about what you plan to do next with this research? Not the people before you or after you, but what do you hope to do? What are you going to do?
Like I said, I want to do a qualitative component of the survey. I
Okay.
think now that we could see that something is happening, now let's get the understanding behind some of these directors and see what their answers are, or what their perceptions are of it. And I think it makes the study become more intimate about the situation. And also not just, talking about black band directors. Now I want to discuss or do a survey, I'm gonna say it again, on women directors. Because like I said before, I never thought about it before, but once I got, the results back, it's like, wow. Not only do women have to be, code switching a male dominant profession, now let's take that to black women.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I hope I don't offend anybody, but when we think about women in music, the first thing, if I never saw you before and you say, yes, I teach music, the first thing a lot of people think about, do you teach elementary? Which we see a lot more women teaching elementary, which is not a problem, but that's what we see. Now when you're talking about a woman being a high school band director, you don't see that much. So now we're talking about those type of women have to be code switched to being this male dominant position, and they can't be themselves as a woman. So now let's go ahead and add the race to that, a black woman in a male dominant position. So this is probably why they have to code switch all the time. They cannot be themselves at all.
Those intersections will be interesting to explore.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Last question. You putting the women part aside, as you talked about how that surprised you.
Mhm.
And this question is coming from knowing that you're very connected in your heart to this topic. What else surprised you about your results? What was different from maybe what you expected to find?
Honestly, the rest of it, I kind of knew. I thought you was going to say that. I already knew it was happening. It was more doing the study, just kind of prove empirically this is happening. Now let's go ahead and expand research on this.
Proved
So
your experience.
From my experience, yes. So nothing else
Or
really
document.
shocked me about the study, so.
Thank you.
I have one quick follow-up, really quick, that I forgot to ask. Is there, you reported the means a lot, but you didn't report the standard deviations. Is that common practice?
On Likert scales, yeah. It can be for something like that. Because it's, in the analysis we did, you don't really need it. For like the EFA, CFA, and the ANOVA and stuff like that, you don't need, the standard deviation is already baked into that. When you report distributive statistics, you often will go just the means. And since you reported everything, you can extract the standard deviations if you want to.
Because I was curious about the lowest scoring one that was like the 2 point something, I don't remember which question it was. Oh, it was about the culturally based adjudication,
Mm-hmm.
and the criteria. Like, because it was so low, I wondered if the standard deviation was higher.
No, it's not. If you look at the way the score's clustered up there, it's a pretty tight clustering that's similar to the other ones in terms of standard deviation.
Okay.
Because it's very, like you can see it's all
'Cause to
double
me,
digits
that's
on the
more
left.
Powerful if the standard deviation is low.
Well,
for something
it's,
like
it's a
that.
consistent standard deviation to the other questions. That's part of what EFA sorts out. It'll go like, okay, the standard deviation is really high on this. I'm going to put it over here with this thing that looks
Okay.
more like that.
Okay.
So for like descriptive results, you can report standard deviations, but you don't have to for stuff like this.
Okay. I trust you.
But you think it would be more powerful if it showed those? Will you say why?
Only, well, because I don't know, I'm not familiar with EFA.
Oh, so this type of,
And so if EFA accounts for that, and most
Mhm.
people understand that, then, I think that, then that's okay. But I defer to the stats.
but that
experts
means
on this.
like, that, what you're talking, I'm just asking on a novice, or not, I mean, that point is, in this type of research, it would, like, in a poll, we give 4% of it going either way. That's the same type of deviation you're talking about, would be assumed in
It's
this.
similar, yeah, but it's more about like how many people, did everybody sort of respond around the same number, or was it spread out really far?
Right, okay,
Yeah, and that's baked. That's part of how EFA determines what questions go together.
I got you.
Is the amplitude, but also the standard deviation.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
My turn?
Your turn.
In your research techniques, yours not. No, I just wanted to make a couple comments, if that's okay. One of the things that both of the doctors here presented was how you presented it personally. And I could tell because, and everybody's had a different relationship with these guys. So I've heard them talk so much about this. So as you were doing this, when you asked your question about, I felt like the whole thing was confirming what you believed so many times. And I think that's where you could fall into the trap of coming, and in your first writing, when you did the first one, I read that so intensely, and I had lots of questions in the first draft. I was kind of like, okay, I think I can't tell when this is him and when this is research, okay? And then the second one is just dramatically different, and I'm so happy for you. And I am emotionally connected and really think it's beautiful. And I'm so impressed because he did not come in with this. You did not come here, in my opinion, the ability to think through all this in any organized form. And you're leaving here.
Well, you had the ability, you just had to learn how to do it.
I don't know. I mean, I was like, okay, good luck, folks. He seems like a good band director to me, but I have no idea if he can. This is not the type of thing that I would. And it just seems beautiful that you've done that and gone through this process, which I'm sure, when you have such passionate beliefs, are really hard to dissect and do. Okay, so I think that's beautiful. And I do think that those places where you can reinforce that this is more a broad study and not just you do help. But I also think that when you're presenting it, to me, it's very clear where you start to smile and the things that interest you, and the woman, that part of it was very interesting. And bringing the subject of code switching to my mind has just been like, I see it everywhere, and I don't just see it in a racial or ethnicity. I see students doing it in different ways and different things in different environments. So it's an exciting area to look at. I thought the westernized comments, I think that gets a little confusing sometimes, because if we get into now I have another side of this too. But if you get into it, you're talking about high step marching, you're talking about all these things that were still developed to some degree in the United States. However, I was shocked to watch marching bands in India, and that did not come from the United States. That was, and because I saw this when we were doing the president's wedding her daughter, and they had marching bands, and that was a part of the celebration. And I was like in shock. And they go, well, "Yeah, this is our culture. This is what you use, and this is what marching bands usually do." And I was like, "Oh." And they were doing everything we do and playing really different music and fun stuff, but it was like totally different. And so that kind of played into it. So that does get a little, because you start to question, what does he mean by that when you're reading it? So that may be a little area to, as an intrinsic or just somebody that reads it, which is what I think we want people to do. So I think it covers both of that. But I think that's another area that you might want to, just, I don't know, how do you say that? Yeah, clarify a little bit. And then there was one other one that was, you brought up something, and it's not a problem with, but it was about bringing out the harder comments, the more,
Yeah.
all right. Now, there's two sides to that, right? Because because in the earlier edition, you brought out some of those more passionate moments, and it shut the thinking down a little bit. It came across to me as, well, I'm going to say this way because it does come across this way to other people. Well, it just sounds like someone has a chip on their shoulder, and you should have a chip on your shoulder, and we all need to acknowledge that. But there might be a way to balance some of those things, because without that, we don't know the passion that's behind it and the frustration. You got real not tickled, but like to see our reaction on the fourth comment, because that was the first one that started to say what you really feel too. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I think in that case, you might want to support that a little bit more like you're suggesting.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more unpacking in particular of that indoctrination comment because that doesn't prove that indoctrination is happening. That suggests that that's what that person's experience is.
Yeah.
Also, and that person has very strong feelings about that. But others, I think you almost have to say, like, some could say that this person has a chip on his shoulder. You say it in a more scholarly way, but this points to the fact that the feelings are strong. So by saying what the other side might feel, then what you're saying is, I know what you're going to say.
Right.
Don't discount this person because they're saying it strongly. They have a reason behind what they're saying.
I think you've done, I think you just, and I don't know that you have to change anything, but if the next step of this, I don't think that we should be afraid to do that.
Right.
But I appreciated the effort because it kept us open-minded the whole time. And I think that's important too. So that's a balance that I really acknowledge the challenge on.
Well, I also think doing the qualitative portion of this study will bring out some of those comments from other directors as well. So I think, like I said, it's going to make it more intimate where those feelings are going to come out. So I think the next study is going to be a little bit stronger in your face when it comes to the comments that have been.
I think you should also, I'd like to see you present this several places. I think this is just, we should, this is really, and lastly for me again, I love this collaboration. I just think this is an amazing opportunity. You're the first to really come in from this background, that this group of people decided to really take a look and say, hey, this could be a marvelous way of doing things and collaborating with HBCU and the doctoral program here. So I commend you, and I think the way you handled the questions. Well, I think that, that can be very intimidating. You all are very well, incredible scholars. Hey, and so because I'd be scared. Were you scared?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see me trying to sit up here and hold my hands till you won't stop shaking. So yes.
I think I haven't been in a defense in, I don't know, a long time, and not in music education ever. This was, so from my little bit, thank you for the work you've done. And I have certainly enjoyed my colleagues through this process. I've learned so much, and I really appreciate it. But congratulations.
I don't have any questions. You've had enough questions for me, but I did want to share kind of with the committee and everybody else here and on the live stream. The westernized thing, that was a bugaboo that we dealt with back and forth a lot. And actually, I think I shared with the committee, there was a person, Crystal Williams, posted, she used the term on her Facebook post, and she's kind of I guess an influencer in that space. So like it's reflective of, it's a vernacular expression. There isn't research about that. No one has gone through that I've come across that he could find either that looks at that specific use of that term in that space. So that's another avenue for research too, of just
Absolutely.
unpacking what that is and how that has evolved, and the kind of hybridity of marching band as a Western construct in a lot of ways, but that has been claimed and adapted and kind of imagined in this HBCU African, basically Black music aesthetics space, which I think is a really interesting thing that is understudied from the perspective of scholarship. It's very well talked about in vernacular spaces. So I think
Right.
that offers another
And that's
avenue.
where you're a translator for us.
Right.
Mhm.
So you're providing,
For the research side, yeah.
yeah.
Because
yeah.
intrinsic, like when you said vernacular, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I got this. We've heard this my
Mhm.
entire career.
Mm.
You have felt this kind of like, what are we doing? You know, I mean, I remember, I can't think who was the president of the United States. We had this big discussion between the University of Michigan marching band. Do you remember this? And it was on there was a reverend that talked about it. It was on TV, and we had this big moment of diversity between the college marching bands. And I thought, wow, you know, this is really a thing. And I hated it
Yeah.
because we were just going, it's this or this, and neither of the two can mix. And I never thought of the interpretation of a vernacular to the research side. I
Yeah,
never
just,
thought of that.
you just need to clarify that this is a common term used in the community, and you come up with an operational definition.
Mhm.
You can be the
Ooh.
first one to do it,
Yeah.
Yay.
and situate it in Black music aesthetics, you know? So, because as it sits right now, it's just, we're left to sort of say, like, what is westernized? And,
Well, and we,
what does it mean to you? What does it mean to these directors? Especially because it was in your survey.
Right.
and one of the things, which it makes sense it was in the survey if it's vernacular too, so that would make it
Exactly,
resonate
exactly.
with the target audience. But I mean, the other thing I think too within this idea of westernize is that we start to habituate to what we kind of assume it means, and because it's not clearly defined, our definitions drift. So the more
Yeah.
you can provide clarity, the stronger that
Yeah.
that's going to be for people who don't know that as a term of use in their daily
Yeah,
practice.
exactly.
I keep thinking about David's point too about how the code switching requirement to who your audience is that you're presenting this to, because you said, well, you want to
Blows my
present it here
mind.
and here and here. And I thought about that because at one point in I think it was the implications, you said, well, it's up to us to change it. And I stopped, I was like, does us include me? I don't think it does. I think he's talking about Black band directors. And so I was wondering, is this document in your mind being presented to Black band directors, or is it being presented to researchers, which may be, you know,
No,
who knows
this is
what?
not just, a research to present to Black vendors, it's for
Sure.
everyone.
So that makes it a
This is
little
the
tricky
only way
with,
we'll be able to make any type of change in, systemic
I
issues.
agree, yeah.
That everybody be involved, not just Black vendor, cause we're the ones that's trying to be involved, but we're not able to.
Mhm.
Now, this is totally probably off the research, but do you in your own thought process, or have you written out an idea you have for adjudication of marching band and rubrics like this?
No,
Because to me, there is this is just reality, right? There is, I mean, someone's gotta do something.
right.
So are you
Well-
suggesting, now here's where and then we need, someone's gotta do something, go ahead.
Well,
Sorry.
I will say this, I was speaking, with one of my friends, Derek Walker, he's at Cedar Hill, High School in Dallas. Texas, whether it's next year or the year after, I'm not sure, they're getting ready to have a component for the show style bands, HBC style bands.
Within
You
UIL.
need to be studying
Within
that.
UIL. Yeah,
Right?
They actually have a committee for it. And I believe Alabama has done the same thing.
Because
And
one of,
Mississippi.
right, because I'm thinking, okay, here you've got this panel, and one of them is doing marching, and what how we do, and where do you insert that, and how would that work? Because it should be discussed.
Yeah.
I mean, general effect
Mhm.
has an opening there that makes total. I just want them to move on or try something.
Well, I don't know if y'all know Dr. Chandler Wilson. He just recently did a session for FMEA summer session, and he broke down the HBC culture of marching band. So basically teaching people, okay, for an example, when we're standing still in concert formation and we're playing our concert number or our auxiliary feature, that's our style, to stand still and let the folks be on them. We're not moving around doing a drill. We're just focusing on them. and that's a part of our structure. But we have a lot of high school bands who will get dinged in the scoring
Because they're
for
standing still. Yep.
still.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So just people learning the techniques and, you know,
The
style that we
expectations,
use,
yeah.
the expectations will better, you know, serve black bands when they go to marching and VA.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, I think that completes the committee questions. Anyone from the audience have any questions?
So I certainly enjoyed, I've been watching
Okay.
the presentation the entire time. And your passion for this topic, it's palpable. You can feel it throughout the room. So I enjoyed looking through. I haven't been able to completely go through the dissertation, but I've read through much of it. And I had a question that's actually related to David's question, which is, if this is to be taken further and for the new, what is it called, a new area that's going to be that's going to be adjudicated, do you see, based on your study, challenges to that implementation? For instance, my understanding is those who are adjudicating have to have received a specific, had to have received a score, a certain score for a number of years, which would likely not be in the show style. So are there challenges that you see for implementation?
I do feel that I would be met with challenges from the broader community, because right now you have a lot of people who believe using one rubric for everyone, assuming that all the bands are trying to achieve the same goal. They're trying to say it's fair, but what we don't need is fair, we need equity. So basically, when it comes to the rubrics, you need to make sure you include stylistic points for those bands, what that's outside of, you know, the core style norm, because if you look at the rubrics, most of the rubrics we're talking about is always geared towards, you know, the core style, fixing for this element, that element. But when you actually include some techniques on that rubric that's geared for HBCU bands, influence bands, now we could talk about, okay, they're supposed to be doing this, score them accordingly. Now, the other part is, when it comes to adjudicators, we need more black adjudicators as well. So it's a lot that goes into making, you know, this work out. So yes, I do believe I will receive, you know, some pushback. So a lot of people would not believe in this study, and I'm okay with it, as long as they know there's a problem out there that we need to address.
Relatedly, I think a question came up for me as somebody not in this field, but you made a comment about use of characteristic sound, and
Go ahead, I'm gonna jump on that, go ahead.
well, it's sort of like, it was towards the end with your suggestions, I can't remember where it was, but I was like, how will that work? Because characteristic sound in core style means one thing, and characteristic sound in HBCU style means something different. And how do you, is there a way to even reconcile those two things?
So,
What do you think?
one of the other things, a pushback that I do anticipate from the HBC directors when it comes to sound. When we're talking about a characteristic sound, and when we're talking about toning down our sound, don't let us make us tone down our sound. That is not to make an excuse for not producing a characteristic tone. You still have to play in tune, in tone, use proper articulations. So some people out there, directors, they just think, okay, we're gonna play loud. This is our style. This is for the culture. We just play loud. But they don't sound good. You still have to focus on those techniques to make that instrument or in that section and that ensemble sound good. So when it comes to the sound, yes, you still wanna focus on those elements, but naturally, HBCU inspired bands, we just naturally play stronger than core style bands. But they want us to bring all that down. But understanding, yeah, we may play stronger, that doesn't excuse not producing a characteristic tone.
Okay.
Can I add something in there to speak to what Dr. Durr just said? I think the other thing too is there is a characteristic sound for HBCU style
Yes.
marching bands that is different from core style.
Yes.
And I think part of what makes that something tractable is black music aesthetics as a frame to look at that through to say, here's why it's different. It's different, for these reasons. But I think also it's within that characteristic sound within HBCU spaces. That was hard to say. There is a variance that you would see in the westernized core style side too. There's that same there's bad HBCU bands just like there's bad core style bands and bad military style bands and all the different flavors of marching band we have. The characteristic aspect of it is specific to HBCU, I think, in the way that Kedrick uses it.
So it almost seems like there's the community will need to, a community of people using HBCU style will need to maybe define those standards, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they
Well,
already exist.
That's hard because they're just aggressive against each other.
Yeah.
I was going to throw in. I see this on the conversely the PWI side because we are the ones that have been so negative about sound. In fact, a lot of PWIs will go. I'm saying that, it just cracks me up. I've never heard that before until these guys came. You're like, this is what we call it. You're like, duh. That we just obliterate the sound. We'll just talk how horrible it all is, but we're amazed by the movement. All right, and so there's some idea that on the other side that we need to, arrangements are different. Keys are different. HBCUs they have screamers. They'll go up higher, and we'll be like, no, we're going to play a chord like this, and they'll go, no, we can flip the chord up here. We, not all. I mean, I do, but Dr. Zach and I used to have this conversation. If there was a better understanding from the PWI side on adjudication of what they're actually doing, I think there are things that this side and the two sides should discuss those. That's what's never happened. A characteristic trumpet sound. The HBCU band will take that and they'll play with a consistent edge the whole time.
Right.
And it's beyond a sound that maybe I'm like, but in the style of music, they're not doing that on, an overture.
Right.
They're doing that on a song that makes sense.
Right.
And what I was going to ask you is, where are we starting to fall as a college marching band? U of H, because we're not all one with our sound for sure. And we've gotten close to crank, as he would say.
Okay, so.
Where are we?
So I see U of H, and there's another school.
Because we're criticized for this too. The HBCUs are kind of mean about them. What are you trying to do?
So
They know because they had a deal. They had to defend us, right?
right. So I don't think you guys are dropping the ball. I'm actually proud of what you guys were doing. I'll use an example.
You're a part. You're a reason about
Yeah.
that too. So.
When I was at a rehearsal at TSU, and y'all had a game. And of course, I'm watching the game on my phone, not supposed to be, but I was watching the game. And we won. And you guys played Screw.
Which is stuff I don't even know what they are,
Yes.
but I get it.
Yes. And when I say the sound, it was very edgy.
Yeah.
And we heard it from the rehearsal. So we're like, there's another school in town. No, that's UH. They over there cranking. And it sounds good.
Yeah.
So you're starting to see a lot more PWI bands follow that element in the stands,
Yeah.
not on the field.
Right. I got you.
Right. So you'll hear a lot more rap songs being played during the stands. Because to be honest, okay, your audience that you're playing for at a football game is who? And who you're trying to hype up? The football team. And if we want to be real, if we're talking about the football team, what's the majority of the makeup of the football team? Black players. They listen to what? Rap. So if you want them to be hyped up during the game, you're going to play songs they're going to sit on the sideline bobbing their head. Now, when it comes to HBCU band, we're not just doing that.
They're not even the
Our number one focus is that other band across the street.
It's almost for a band person.
Yeah.
Kids that don't get to experience that, it's amazing. That's why so many people love to go to the band classics.
Yeah.
And it's a very big group of
Mm-hmm. So
Enthusiasts.
to answer your question, I don't think, U of H is dropping the ball. I think y'all doing a good job. You still stand true to your identity on the field, which I do see y'all add elements of the Big Ten
Yeah, yeah.
in your
Mhm.
margin.
And look where our history came from.
Yeah, exactly. So, being to yourself on the field, you get in the stands, then you turn up, it's a party. So what I'm starting to see a lot more PWIs do the same thing, so I don't think it's dropping the ball.
Okay.
I'm not gonna speak negative of it, I'm not gonna say that, hey, why are they playing Nick? Why are they playing, all we do is win, win, win. Yeah, no, play it, get the players hyped up, so, yes, you guys are doing a good job.
Excellent. Well, I think that about wraps everything up. We're going to end the live stream now, so thank you to everyone who is in attendance. And